Alex Wyatt will chair. Roll call. Andy Gwaltney.
Okay.
Andrew Wolverton.
Here.
Patrick McCluskey.
Here.
Alex Wyatt.
Here.
And John Harden.
Here.
All right, so we'll start with the minutes from the September 14th meeting that have already been circulated. I'd entertain a motion to dispense with the reading and approval of those minutes.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Mr. McCluskey, second by Mr. Harden. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 4-0. Old business 010220, request for updates on Green Springs revitalization. I'm assuming we don't need anything additional from what we did in finance, so we'll carry it.
Well, no, I believe.
Or do we? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you back there,
Update.
Clark.
Yeah. I have reverb this time too.
We'd rather have you anyway.
Watch it out.
Yeah, quick update on Green Springs. We talked about the evaluation. We're looking at the trail between Broadway and Lakeshore. So I just brought some updated drawings to show you. We have shifted this concept in order to stay out of the creek, reduce the costs, because we were looking at concrete cantilevered paths that were millions of dollars, and we were looking at like getting into stream restoration, things like that. We want to stay away. So what we've done is we've narrowed the travel lanes from the interstate width of 12 feet down to take about a foot and a half out of each one. It's still wide enough, pretty common in that level of speed. Reclaim that acceleration lane that nobody really uses when you turn right from Lakeshore onto Green Springs, and use that width to push and have the space for a trail. And the pathway, or the multi-use path, the path would vary between 8 and 10 feet wide, which is by law wide enough for both bicyclists and pedestrians. And if we want to click to the next slide, and it would just kind of continue up the side there all the way to Broadway. We can keep going. So all of this path is on, it doesn't impact, there's existing lights there. If you look hard between the junipers, you can see them. So it would be able to maintain those and make that connection. So that's been a piece that we've been evaluating. For the rest of the project, we've gotten to that 90% phase. We've got our units a little tighter, and so we're starting to get into the full cost estimating and getting a lot more detailed. And so with this piece and the other piece being Lakeshore to Berry, we're starting now to compile all that, figure out what the numbers are. So one part of that is it is looking like it is going to be more than we originally budgeted to do everything. And so what we're going to be doing this week is sitting down to figure out how do we get this to fit the budget. Is it a phased approach? Do we need to go in and do a deep value engineering and see what we can pull out? Things like that. So we want to come back, bring y'all the hard numbers, and show you, here's a path forward to get to the project, but fit it in the budget and still accomplish the goals. So that's basic gist of the update for tonight. Any questions?
All right.
All right, thank you.
I'm good.
All right. Thank you, Clark. We appreciate it. We will carry this item over without objection and wait and hear those numbers. Next item, 050720, request to address flooding concerns on Hillmore Drive. Councilor Wolverton, excuse me.
Sorry, hold on. We talked about this last week, so we're going to go ahead and carry this still. Berkeley and his crew are going to get out there. I did speak to the homeowners actually yesterday, so just kind of gave them the update that we are waiting. They did indicate that obviously we haven't had any torrential downpours lately, and so things are relatively stable, but they are definitely waiting for us to come back out and evaluate further. So I'm
okay. Thank you.
Motion to.
We'll carry that one over without objection then. On to new business, 020920, request for consideration to work in the right-of-way to extend paving in alley less than 55 feet for rear vehicle access at 1512 Roseland Drive. Brought to us by Mr. Robert Fox, who's agent for the homeowner, David Bruno, and Mr. Pugh.
Mr. Fox is here to discuss his.
Mr. Fox? Mr. Fox, if you'll just come up to the podium, please, and sign in. There's a sheet up there to sign in. Or Robert, you have the sign-up sheet, Robert?
Yes, sir.
I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to you on behalf of Mr. Bruno. What we're looking at is Homewood's growing, and our streets are, and especially in Roseland, this side of Homewood is really seeing the impact of multiple cars in each family, not really having ease of access in and out of your streets. Everybody's parking on the front roads. You get that early morning Saturday where bicycles are coming through there, and it's just almost a nightmare. I am a builder, and so I get to try to bring a concrete truck down those lines, and some of you people will probably see that West Glenwood over there is a little bit of a tragic opportunity with the construction going on there, trying to move in and out. So when I bring to you just trying to open up the alleyway, Mr. Hughes and Mr. Greg Cobb helped me with the map today. Do you guys have this? Have y'all seen this? I want to draw to your attention that the area that I'm speaking of is the highlighted alleyway that's in yellow. And right now that alleyway is open. So everywhere you see yellow is an open alleyway. Where you see the red shade is where that alleyway's been closed off and there's no more access. What this does to the 48 through 45, through 59, through even 54, 55, the property I'm responsible for, is it stops us from using that alleyway, which stops us from getting vehicles off the road, which stops us from keeping those roadways clear for waste management, fire trucks. I mean, you can imagine down on this Clinworth Drive, if you've ever been up and down it, I mean, I couldn't imagine if you need to get a fire truck up and down there. That's not my problem, nor is it my property. I'm talking about what I can help the city with, is I could help the city by opening up that, on paper, is an alleyway. By reclaiming that, we could have all of our residents around me, probably approximately 8 or 9 residents, be able to have access to the back end of their home and be able to park vehicles off the road. There's a couple families that came tonight that would talk to you about having multiple cars, and the husband has a office in the back, and she's, you know, stay-at-home mom with twins, X, Y, and Z, and the musical chairs approach that they have to bring whenever it's time to leave. And Mr. Jacob was there before her, and now she's parked behind him, and he can't go out the back to access the alley and get out any feasible way. So they have to back a car out, pull another car around, and back another car in, mainly because we're sitting on an easement that's been blocked by just growth and basketball goals and fences. I don't want to make this about my individual deal. It's a collective whole. Alleys and these accesses get vehicles off the streets for us and keep these roadways clean and clear. Being that Roseland is the heart of, you know, one of your subdivisions right here. Roseland cuts right down through the middle and gives you all kinds of access from Oxmoor. You can dive in and out, and if you just sit on it one day, you'll see the amount of traffic we have. So I don't want to sound redundant and whatnot, but that's me.
Mr. Fox, thank you. Let me just make sure I understand the request. Is this just about you getting trucks back there for, while you're doing construction on the house?
No, sir.
Okay, so you're looking to put something back there permanently?
I'm not looking to put anything back there. I'm looking to remove and add a pathway through there.
Okay.
What you see on the red shaded area, but you don't have it.
Well,
What you see is,
I'm familiar with it.
okay,
So are you trying to provide a back access for the house that you're constructing there?
not just the house that I'm working at, but every house that's affected at the end of that alley.
Excuse me, Mr. Wyatt, can I ask a question?
Yes.
You're making the request for your property, you're not making the request for the other neighbors. If they wanted to make that request, they could. So
Okay.
you're here to address your specific property. And
Right.
the question is, what are you wanting to do?
All right, so, and then asking my request, I'm not just coming here with the effects of it just affecting me. I came here on saying that, and my request doesn't just allow me to operate, but my request opens up a whole host of other people who would gain an advantage to an alley access upon me getting what I want. It's not just
And some
me
of those
winning,
people
it's-
are here, and they
Right.
might disagree with your,
What,
And there's
request.
people here that would agree with me.
so what are you looking to put back there, I guess is my question.
Some gravel, just finish out the existing alleyway that's on here, make it
No, I'm
match.
sorry, I'm not being clear. You're providing access for that alley, but how is that benefiting the property that you're here about tonight, I guess is what I'm asking.
Oh, it would add a back entrance
Okay,
to my property.
because you already, that property already has a driveway coming off of Roseland, correct?
Yeah, there's 7 other properties that have driveways that also have alley access. Yes,
Right.
sir.
But the property that you're here about is one of those with a driveway off of Roseland?
It is the only one that has a driveway that doesn't have an alley access, yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
So let me make sure I understand. You've got an alley, a legal alley behind your property.
Yes, sir.
Everybody else has got that same legal alley. It's not as big as the alley to the right of it, as you're looking at it, to the west of it. But that alley, the legal length of that alley is what it is, the width of it. You're not
15
gonna-
foot
You can't change that.
No, sir.
Are you asking now for that alley just to be improved so
Yes.
that you can drive on it, because it's not really drivable at this
It's
point?
not drivable because of the basketball goal.
he's
and the
he's
fence
wanting
property.
to, there's a section of the alley that comes off of Linwood.
Yeah.
That Jim Smith came to the city about years ago. I don't know, Greg would have to tell you how long ago that was. It's been a long time. And they basically closed the alley coming off of Linwood. You can still access the alley off of Valley Place, which not that many people do. I think there's a couple of residents who keep vehicles back there that like to get them out occasionally. But, so the section of the alley that is closed, I believe, is what he is referring to. And that's the part that is basically the Mosley's backyard.
Unfortunately, I believe the paperwork doesn't say that he was given authorization to block off that property line.
Greg, I don't know, you can speak to
I'd
that.
be a little surprised we let somebody
That was
block an
before,
alley.
it's before we existed, before I was here.
I'd
I
be
wasn't
surprised, Mike.
involved in the issue when Jim Smith did that, but I've known about it for over 20 years. But something just hit me tonight, is that you can't put a driveway back there, in the back of that yard, because it blows didn't you tell me you're at 48% impervious?
You would have to do the calculation. I wasn't talking about necessarily a concrete substrate, but that if you use a.
You can't use gravel.
Well, it's the city's property, so.
No, I'm talking about in the backyard of that house, the house property is already at 48% impervious, and so you can't get a driveway back there and stay under the 50%.
I can't put a concrete driveway back there.
Right.
I could use pavers or stone on the ground and it would suffice.
And
But
not,
we're speaking to the
you hadn't seen our
property, not the
definition of
alleyway, right?
impervious, okay?
But this right here, the driveway you're speaking of is to the property of what I am, the 15-foot
If
two.
Jetty Trip would pop the pictures up of that backyard, it's pretty much, that's standing, looking at the back of the house that's existing, and to the left is the fence, and the next picture is the addition to the house. So that piece I'm standing on is the only piece of dirt left.
Right, to the back of the house is how many feet to the back of the
I don't know how many
garage?
feet, but that's not it. The point is, if you build a driveway, you gotta make it impervious, and paving stones are not impervious. Okay?
So I have to have a driveway at the back of there where I want to park vehicles.
No, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I guess what we're struggling with is if you can't build something back there to park vehicles,
Wait, who's saying I can't build back there?
you can't go over
On the
50%.
property.
You can't go over 50%.
Right, we're at
Impervious substance.
46.7 on the building
I thought you said
permit.
48. It's 46.7?
We can go back to the building permit. I don't have that file offhand, but we're well within, we're underneath, and if I was gonna pave anything back there.
It would still be underneath 50.
Oh, I'd be well below, because we're only talking this 25 by 5. I wanted to add maybe a percentage to the property.
No, it adds more than that. It adds some more than 2%. Cause I just did the math on it, but I thought you told me 48. You said you're 46, so you probably, it'd make you end up at about 48, 49% coverage.
Right.
All right.
And if we
Well-
did it the width of the tire treads and made it a true, just an easement through to the other side, then we would be, it wouldn't just be a wide pad, it would still have a narrow nook. Now, that's to the property. We wouldn't be talking about the 15-foot easement right there.
All right, I don't have the history on what Jeff Smith did years ago whenever they. That's been here for, I've been here a long time too, I know, Jeff. 25 years, you know, so, I don't know what the history on that is, but my concern was that, I was concerned about impervious surfaces.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think
And
depending,
30% of the rear yard, you can't cover up more than 30% of the rear yard, and the driveway is now counted as a structure.
well, I think,
So we changed that ordinance last year to include driveways, sidewalks, decks, and everything. So that's, I don't think it'll work, but we'll redo the math.
well, I think we're going to hear from some other people tonight too before we get too far down this road, but I would think at the very least we would need those questions answered, because if we're heading for over 50% or in violation of any other ordinance, then there's no
30%.
reason to provide access in the first place, but,
30% of the rear yard.
or 30% of the rear yard, then there wouldn't, that would negate the need, in my mind, at
Well,
least for
that's
the
where I
alley,
was
so.
going. I just thought about that today, but we had a good discussion this morning. But I got to thinking about that and looking at that little area that's left that's got grass on it, and said, we're not going to have anything left.
Mr. McCleskey?
Well, yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my question would be, based off what I'm seeing here highlighted in yellow, everybody that's on Roseland except for your property already has access to the alley.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the benefit that you talked about, that everybody would have access if I did this, well, they've already got it.
Well, they do have an alley
I mean, I know they
access,
have to
but
come
the-
off a valley to do it, but they still have access
And
already.
that turn on the on the alley access is a little tough. If it was a straight shot, it would alleviate that.
Okay.
You would have to go out and see where we're at. I would resubmit that it's growing pains of a city has to be in alleys. If we need, I mean, you go to Avondale, you go to Mountain Brook, you go anywhere, and when you drive down their Dexter Avenues, when you drive down their Montevallo roads, you're going to see 4-foot piles of trash on the front main roads. They have the alleyways for those, they keep the trash in the back, and right now what we're doing on Roseland is you're taking all your trash and you're running it to piles. Primrose is another good example, and they make all these piles, and the trash would be piled up that high, and then they come and collect it. Another option on the problems with Roseland is when you have your debris pickups, where they're picking up with the clamshell. If somebody's parked their car there where your debris is, and those guys drive by, they're not picking up the trash that day. So that means more debris is left on our sidewalks, which means more clutter's left on the front road of Roseland, where everybody's seeing us. And
Ms.
so
Smith, do you have another question?
I do. Well, it's not really a question. It's just more of a statement. First of all, that alley only services about 7 houses, 9 houses at the most. So that it's not, they're not going to start collecting trash in the back for 7 houses. They're going to do the trash like they do the trash now. They're also going to do the debris cleanup like they do the debris cleanup right now. And Mr. Squires over there is our Public Works Director. Berkeley, would y'all take a trash truck down a paper alley? Okay.
And I would
Thanks.
resubmit that that's another reason why I should have the alley, to be able to get cars off of Roseland, to be able to park them on the alley. That's why I'm asking for the alley to be open, is so that I can get another car off of Roseland and another car on an alley in the back of a property and out of the main flow of traffic.
Mr. Fox, I walk by this house every day. I live a couple blocks away. How many cars can you fit on the existing driveway on that property?
Maybe.
3, 4?
Yeah.
3 or 4? Okay. All right. Does anyone else here wish to speak to this item? If you'll just come on up and sign in.
Hey, I'm Chad. So I guess I'll talk because I think this is primarily affecting me more than anyone. And I hear, like some of these points I hear about getting some cars off the street, but the alley he's talking about turning, that paper alley is my driveway. And, you know, I get that y'all are flippers and want to make the most money possible, but I got 4 kids. I bought that house primarily because I know I got 2 driving now and I got 2 that will be driving within the next 4 years. I need like the room. So I'll be really parking on the street, both sides of the street. You know, additionally, obviously, I got these pictures. I don't know if I can leave those with people, but a basketball goal is going to have to be taken out. That alley's going to be about 3 feet from my youngest son's bedroom. So it'll be, you know, these cars are talking about using, it's going to go right by there. You know, to me, it's somewhat of a safety issue too. I've had like 2 break-ins at the house and a car stolen, so I'm a little concerned about just it being a more used thing. But the big thing to me is that there's already a driveway at their house on Roseland, and they're trying to take away my driveway, so I have 0 driveway, so that they can have back parking. I mean, and it'll go right through my backyard. So my fenced backyard with my dogs that I'll have to do something different with, and there'll be no kids playing basketball. It's not really I don't see how it's even possible to do it.
Can I ask, where do you live?
I'm at East Linwood Drive. So these pictures will kind of show the alley that he's talking about that extends is my driveway essentially. And you know, rule-wise, I don't really want to get into that. I mean, I've maintained that property, and Jim Smith before me, I think it's been maintained that way for like 30 years. And I get it.
This is East Linwood, right?
It's an easement, but it's been closed off for a long time. I mean, I bought the property.
Yeah.
And that was a big reason why I bought the property, because I knew with these kids I was going to have parking. I got a parking pad. I'm usually parking 2 on the street and then 1 in that alley, which if that alley is opened up, I won't be able to park in that alley anymore because it'll be go into another back entrance. It won't be usable to me at that point. So I just think that would severely just kind of affect the value of that property, and especially the value of that property to me, knowing that I need the room. So
I'd like to see the pictures.
Yeah, I was trying to say, you feel free to pass those pictures around.
yeah. Let's see if there's some that are perfect. So this is the driveway. This is the basketball goal. This is Caroline's driveway. It goes on here.
Your house is over here, correct?
My house
I mean,
is over
on this picture, this is your house right here. Would be right off this
Okay.
picture, correct? Yeah.
So that's the basketball goal, and I mean, it would have to go into this. See, the alley extends all the way back there, because there's another alley that goes behind Chris's new house.
Okay.
So what he's talking, the only way to do this, because there's the property line there, is to go and turn like all the way through that backyard into there, as I understand it.
I have some pictures too.
Okay.
That's just where my son lives there.
So this driveway, my parking pad comes off of that, and this is the driveway that we share. So there's the house that he's building, that's my parking pad, and then can you see that this is what he's calling the alley, it's very narrow. And then here is their, I mean, they have a very long driveway with a parking pad. So,
So that's my big. they're-
And
they're
Caroline?
Taking away my driveway for them to have to.
And let me point out that Caroline's house and the house next door to her, which both use that back part, that back access, neither one of those houses has a driveway off of Roseland.
right.
They only have the parking at the back of their houses. They have no access to their houses from Roseland.
Which ones are you talking about?
Caroline's house,
Okay.
which is just
Okay.
to the, which is just next door, and then the house that's on the
53 and
corner of
54, okay.
Roseland and East Linwood.
Okay, thank you.
house on
Valley yeah.
has no driveway.
And he's on Valley Place.
I'm on Valley Place, and that alley runs right next to my house, coming from the other direction.
She's lot 49.
Okay, okay, thank
Can
you.
you come and sign in since you spoke? All right, does anyone else have any questions for Mr. Mosley? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who wishes to speak to this matter? If you'll just come on up and sign in, please.
Yeah, the only thing I would add that I haven't said or hasn't been said is there is a safety issue that I think is important. Coming from Valley, let's just say that it was granted and it opened up. Now, all of a sudden, there is access from Valley to turn right and come out on Linwood or come straight down Linwood behind all the houses on Roseland. There's a safety issue. There are probably 60 kids that live on Valley, okay? They ride their scooters up and down in front of my house constantly, and they're all small children. We don't need additional traffic right there coming my way. As far as, you know, coming out of Linwood, we also don't need a path. Chad was talking about he's had his house broken into or his car, whatever it was. You know, when you give criminals an easy access to make a quick exit, you're just inviting it. And I don't want that. My bedroom is 5 feet. I've got one of the worst lots in Homewood. I have no driveway. I have a 5-foot setback, which is that's the big setback. The other side's 3 feet. So my house is squeezed in with no driveway and 5 feet on an alley that I really have enjoyed not having a lot of traffic go up and down. There's a couple of gentlemen that live on Roseland that do use the alley maybe once a month, if that. But they don't use it. They want to have access, great, no problem. But it's not really used, and I like it that way, and I feel safe. So that's really all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
Hey,
Hi.
Alan Renfro. I live a few houses down from the property being developed. I guess the only real question.
You may, just get closer to the mic.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We've lived there for 8 years now, and access to that alley is not very easy from Valley. If you look on Google Maps, you see that there's supposed to be an alley in an L shape, and I guess the question is, it's a significant portion of property that is the city's, but it's being held by somebody else. And so it feels like there's precedent throughout Homewood for alleys to exist. Thankfully, we've never had any kind of break-ins or anything like that, but I don't know that the precedent that's been set with alleys being throughout Homewood, access, you know, they're on paper, but not as concerned about parking a vehicle there, but just more concerned about the access to the alley being what it should be. Does that make sense?
It does. I will tell you, we have a number of paper alleys throughout the city that are still nothing but paper alleys.
Okay.
There are a lot of, more than anyone probably knows, to tell you the truth, because we come across them fairly frequently. So I don't think this one is sort of out of character with others. This one does have alleys that are being used on either side of it. It makes it a little bit different, but yes, I mean, I think this, part of the reason for this, as Ms. Smith said, someone came to the city years ago and got the agreement to do this.
Right.
Which is how we got where we are.
Can we clarify they got the approval? Because I don't think they did.
They did.
Mr. Cobb never said that they got the approval to build the structure.
No, I said I wasn't here.
We,
Did it before I came to work.
When would this city give up their right of a 15-foot easement for utilities, pathways that nobody right now is paying property tax on? And then you got a piece of property 15-foot wide and roughly 175-foot long that you're not collecting tax revenue on.
does anyone have any questions for Mr. Renfro?
You are in favor of opening the alley? That was your position?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you very much.
I don't think I need to say anything much more than has already been said, but I live on 1502 Roseland Drive. The only way you can access the back of my house is the driveway that Chad Mosley and I share, that is this alley. When my house was built 16 years ago, Twin Construction, as part of the building of my house, repaved that area. And my issue is the privacy. There's 30-year-old growth of vegetation back there that needs to stay there. And we don't need, I have 3 kids too that are gonna be driving and parking back there and having, I don't even see how he could have a fire truck or whatever he's talking about. I mean, I drive a Yukon Denali XL and my car can barely fit down that alley. So, I don't think that the privacy, it's just too much. I don't know how that'll affect the runoff into my lot, the water runoff, by adding more concrete or whatever back there. So I think it's not a good idea.
All right. Yeah, come on up.
What's your name, sir? White? Sure.
All right. Let me get oriented here. On this map, I'm Roger White. I live at number 58, looks like here. I'm sorry, I'll talk here. I basically call this my alley because I designed it, I developed it, I clean it, I got the approval from the city to do whatever I needed to about 10, 12 years ago. I maintain it, I keep it open, I have access from my house, I have a driveway. So I got everything I want. So, but when I heard about Mr. Fox wanting to spend some money and develop my alley a little bit further, I was like, well, I'm curious to hear what he's got to say. Because if I'm spending his money and developing my alley, sounds like a pretty good plan right now. So I'm willing to listen to hear what he's got to say. I have alley access. That's the reason myself, the house, the people that developed this was number 58, number 59, and number 46. About 10 years ago, we all went together, we pitched in the money. It was a considerable amount of money. We developed the alley because eventually we wanted alley access. Because those houses 20 years ago was grandma and grandpa, one car. Now I've got 3 cars and a 15-year-old going to be 16 next year, going to be 4 cars. So maybe when I designed this, I was like, well, maybe I want alley access. Number 46, oh, I'm sorry, I can't say 46, Scott Jenkins and I developed it. And his fence in his back in the alley is actually 7 feet over the property line. you know, it's one of those deals, beg for forgiveness instead of ask for permission. It's like, but when we did this, I mean, he's 7 feet into the alley with his fence, but when we designed this, he goes, if it comes down to it, I'll move my fence. And I go, well, yeah, you just can't take over people's property, the city's property. So we agreed that, I said, look, I don't need access now because I can get through it, so there's no need to move your fence. But he's willing to move his fence. So ultimately, my thing is, am I against this or am I for this? I'm curious. Does this need to die tonight? No. I like to hear what people, what everybody wants to do. I want to hear how much Mr. Fox wants to develop and to see if I can spend some of his money and help my alley. So, questions?
When did you get ownership of the alley?
Well, you know, when I developed it, designed it, spent the money, and I keep it clean, and I have access to it and everything. I know. Well, it's the same thing I asked my neighbor who helped me do this, when did he decide that he had the alley, because he built a fence right in the middle of the alley, and I'm like, but he admits, he goes, I can't. Yeah, you know what I mean. I'm being facetious. Questions, comments?
I want to make sure I understand something. I'm right here. These were platted lots, and there was an alley back put in here in 1920. I'll throw the time out. And so the 15-foot alley that's shown here that really ends, and then there's a 30-foot alley. But that 15-foot alley wasn't really your alley. I mean, it was really platted years ago, right?
Correct. I'm sorry, it's the city's alley.
Yeah, but I mean, it's been there forever. You didn't create that alley by redeveloping that whole
Correct.
piece of land.
I'm sorry, I thought everybody knew that.
No, I'm
It's the
just trying to-
city's alley, but
So you're giving it back to us?
I'm willing to sell it back to you. So, I mean, I'll work
Okay.
with you on it and everything, but you guys, if I give it back to you, you guys gotta keep it clean.
We gotta maintain
Keep
it.
the trees out of it. So right now, and look, I rent out I'm pretty expensive to rent, so right now, I'm doing you guys a favor. So, but like I said, I've got everything. 59, 58, 57, 50, everybody's got access to the alley right now. And so, except for like one house. But, like I said, I really don't have a dog in the hunt on this because I've got what I want, but I'm curious to hear what, like I said, if I can spend somebody else's money and keep my alley clean, I'm curious to hear what's going to happen here, so.
All right, thank you very much.
Mr. White,
Yes, sir.
I need that exhibit, please.
Oh, that's your.
Yeah, that's the official.
Anyone else that wishes to speak to this issue? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, I'm Nancy Jane Lee, and I am the one that Mr. Fox talked about with the twins who was playing musical chairs with the cars. So I was just here in favor of making the alley more accessible, just as a family who really enjoys the charm and the safety of the alleys throughout Homewood. I have 3 kids aged 2 and under, and if we're going to talk about safety, it is one of the only places that I feel safe walking my family are alleys throughout Homewood where there's less traffic and yeah, just making it more accessible. I personally can't even push a stroller on the alley because it's so overgrown, and I really didn't even know there was an alley there, but yeah, just wanted to say that if we're going to speak about safety, that's one of the downsides of living right on Roseland, is that it's so busy. People are going so fast, flying down Roseland, and I'm just really concerned about the safety of my kids if we're just out walking right on Roseland. So, thank you.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
So what he's wanting is more access for vehicles back there. What I just heard you say is you'd rather use it for pedestrian purposes. Is that?
I'm both. Vehicles, as he was saying, that my husband is pulling his car out to get out so that I can move in my van with my kids. But I'm mainly talking about just making it more accessible, paving it, or making it some way where I can push a stroller. But my
Okay.
concern is not mainly about the vehicles. That would just be an added bonus.
Yeah, can you point out which,
Just for the record, so we know which house is yours.
this is Roseland here? Yes. 56. Okay, thank you. It's
Thank you.
56.
Anybody else? All right. Any questions from the committee? Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize, I didn't see you. It's right there on the corner, right there.
I don't know if it's not necessary, if you just have an address. I don't need it for the record. Okay.
My name is Joe Stevens. I'm at 1315 Valley Place. My lot is on the corner of the creek. So I'm at the end of the alleyway that we're discussing. It terminates behind my lot. I guess my question, I don't really have a position yet. My question is, there's been discussion about parking cars in back there. I mean, I just want to make sure, clarifying that we're, wow, this thing's hard talking. I just want to clarify that we're talking about parking cars on private property and not in the right-of-way, correct? Because that space back there is not wide enough between the growth and the fences and everything. The other thing, I guess, and more of, I want to have a statement on record about, as y'all are considering this, because it seems like there's a lot of good arguments here on both sides, but we eventually plan on remodeling our house. Our challenge is, in our back corner that's adjacent to the creek, is in the floodplain, and I've been told that we're not allowed to touch that in any capacity, which then creates a parking issue for us because we park on the streets now, which is a constant battle with the trash trucks and stuff trying to come off the alley, make the turn in front of our house and go out Valley Place. They're coming down the one that goes all the way to Oxmoor, whatever that alley that terminates in the creek. Sorry, didn't need to bring more alleys into this discussion, but I want to clarify. So I guess our concern is making sure that access is maintained in some capacity. There is some there. I wouldn't drive back there today the way it's maintained, but eventually we're probably going to end up putting a garage on the back of that property to work around the flood constraints in order to get some parking, because we don't have anywhere else to park. So not that I want to park in the alley, but I think that back alley access is going to be important to access the garage that we'll eventually put back there. So that's about all I have to say. I'm not really opposed or in favor of it, but just want to make sure that as this gets discussed and worked out, that we don't lose that access eventually that we'll need on the backside there.
Sir, can you give me your address?
1513 Valley Place.
Mr. Stevens, can you?
It's number
on here?
45, right?
Is it 45
I'm
there?
45.
45, okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Anybody else? All right, any questions or comments from the committee or anybody else? Yes, sir, Mr. Higginbotham.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not on this committee, but I did want to ask a question because there seems to be some back and forth about one particular point. Do we have, or can we produce whatever it was that the council adopted that created the situation that exists now?
Mr. Higginbotham, I'm going to try to call Jim Smith tomorrow. That's the easiest thing I know to do since nobody was here when this happened. I'm just going to call Jim or go over to his store and ask him.
Okay, I'm just curious because
Yeah.
we keep going back and forth
Yeah,
about what was or wasn't done.
I
and-
figured he would probably be the best
Sure.
resource there would be. So I will contact him tomorrow to find out the answer.
Thanks.
Mr. McCluskey,
Yes, well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess, and Mr. Jones can speak to this as well, we did have a very similar situation come up in our ward on Virginia and Oxmoor about 10 years ago, 10 years ago, in regards to a property owner who lived on Oxmoor wanted to use he wanted to be able to have access out the back of his house but somebody on Virginia Drive had built there very similar to what the gentleman said earlier about had used that as a driveway and had, basically set almost a precedent to, that's how he actually, he didn't have a driveway and that's what his driveway was. And so, I mean, something like this has come before us in the past. But I think, and I do have a question, I've heard, whether it's Rogers Alley or not, but I've heard that it's cleaned and maintained, but then I've also heard that it's not quite accessible. Is it only, I'm trying to figure out exactly how clean and the alleyway is coming off of Valley all the way behind through to 59.
So off of Valley, all the way to the creek, so you're off of Valley, you turn.
Yep.
to the creek.
You come to the microphone.
From Valley, down Valley, you turn left and go all the way to the creek. It's completely accessible by a truck, trailer. Garbage truck, no. Fire truck, no. But a regular sized vehicle, yes. I'm the one that uses my alley.
Okay.
To haul my truck and stuff, because we park trailers behind number 59's house, and to get that trailer out, we use the alley.
Okay.
And so and then, but like I said, number 46 is over the line by 7 feet with their fence. I still can get down the alley, so the young lady that lives there, I said, hey, look, you don't need to move the fence now. I can still get down the alley. But eventually, if we ever got to a point where we wanted to have truck access down the alley, she would have to move her fence back, and she has acknowledged the fact that she is 7 feet over into the right-of-way and would move her fence. So.
Well, thank you for clarifying. I just, because I'd heard both things, that it is clear and clean and that it's not, so I just wanted to.
And Mr. McCluskey, I will say, I was out there last week and walked the entire length of that portion of the alley with Roger. And, I mean, I wouldn't want to like regularly drive my car through there, because right now Chris has some construction going on, so there's some construction stuff happening. But otherwise, I mean, he keeps it trimmed, and, I mean, it's pretty clear.
Yeah, wait till you get my bill.
Okay.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would, to follow up on the story that Mr. McCluskey was telling, we did not approve opening up that alley. That was the end result. And anytime we have a situation where we have a driveway that has been built like that, we always, and we need to find ways to get cars off the street. And if there's a way, if it's being utilized with that, then I'm for keeping it the way it is and not opening it up. So that's my position on it, clearly.
Any other comments? Well, I think we can go about this two ways. If someone has a motion, we can entertain a motion, or if we want to carry this over and see what we get from Mr. Smith, we can carry it over till the next committee meeting.
I do have one more question. I would like that information that Mrs. Smith's offered to get. And then also, can we verify the coverage of the lot, the house on the lot, and what the plans are that is going to be built in the back? What that coverage is that going to be permeable? Will that fit with our ordinance?
Right.
So,
is it even possible that there could be parking back there?
right, so, and I'd like to see drawings, I'd like to see a lot more information than just, talking about it at the microphone.
What lot number, Mr. Smith?
55.
No.
52. 52, sorry.
He was 52.
He's overall, his Chad's house is on Westwood, faces Westwood, East Westwood, sorry.
So Chad bought Smith's house?
Yes.
Yes.
The Mosley's bought Chad's house, yes.
All right, so in that case, what we'll do then is we'll carry this over. It'll come back up again at the next Public Works Committee meeting, which should be in 2 weeks. In the meantime, you will check with, see if we can get a handle on that. And Mr. Cobb, can you check on the impermeable surfaces and see where we stand with the percentages and any other ordinances that are at issue to see if it's even a possibility to put cars back there? All right. Thank you very much. And with that, we are adjourned.